Hi folks, it's Andy. Welcome to this week's Kendo Rant. Okay, bit of an impromptu Kendo rant this week. I'm over in Japan at the minute, so not got my usual setup. I'm doing this on my laptop with a webcam. Don't have a proper microphone, so please forgive the video quality, the sound quality, and all that sort of stuff. I just wanted to get an episode out. Happy New Year to everybody, first of all. Hope everyone had a wonderful sort of New Year and all that sort of thing. Sorry, didn't have a episode last week, but obviously I was traveling. And yeah, here we are. We've got some great questions for you. Looking forward to getting to them. We'll get to them in just a moment. Before we do, don't forget, the score. It's not going to change for this year, 2023. You've got to like, share, subscribe. All the YouTube stuff. But most importantly, shop at KendoStar.com, the best Kendo equipment website in the entire known universe. You know that already. And of course, I'd say that because I own the place, but let's be honest, it's true. So shop at KendoStar.com. Okay, just before we do jump in as well, one more thing. Just on the KendoStar note, obviously we've had had a couple of weeks off. Oh, I'm off the screen. Our staff have had a couple of weeks off. The whole team's had a couple of weeks off for the end of year holiday period and all that sort of stuff. They just got back in the office, just got back in the shipping centre. They're working as hard as they can to catch up and get back on top of everything. Please be patient with us as we do that, okay? We will do our best to work through it all. Okay, let's get to these questions. First one. You have to forgive me as well if I sound a bit bunged up. I seem to have caught a cold over here. It's not great. It's not great. Anyway, right. Hope all is well with you and your travels and time spent with family during the holidays. Yes, very well. Thank you. My question is, how do you think Kendo and other martial arts as well being given as an option would do in the public or any school system out in the West? What do you believe the pros and cons would be for Kendo and or kids? Could it be beneficial with kids having other options besides the normal Western physical education or extracurricular activities? How would you go about this approach? Or overall, if you think it would be worth it? Thank you. I think that's an interesting question. Obviously, Kendo is part of the school system here in Japan. But it's very, very different, isn't it? It's a very, very different idea to kids doing Kendo in the West, or outside of Japan, where they're often sort of doing it sort of vocationally, if that's the right word, or, because they want to, because they find it fun or find it cool or something like that. It's not really like that here so much. It's not really supposed to be a kind of fun activity in a way. It's kind of supposed to be an educational activity, and I'm not sure that really lends itself well to the Western educational system. That isn't to say that it couldn't be a beneficial activity for kids to do at school. I'm sure it probably could. I think there's a lot of obstacles to overcome though to do that. Obviously equipment's one. And obviously qualified instruction is another. Excuse me. It depends what you end up wanting to achieve out of it, really. If you're wanting for it to be a fun kind of extracurricular sport for them to do, yeah, it could be that. If you want it to be like some kind of educational activity that's going to help influence how they develop as adults, I think that's going to be a much bigger challenge as to do that. I think you're going to have to overcome some massive cultural boundaries that are probably a little bit difficult to bridge, particularly not just with the kids, but with probably with parents as well. So yeah, I'm not so sure, to be honest. Probably not an ideal answer, but that's where I sit on it. Could you explain the differences in terms of advantages and disadvantages between the variations of Chudan or kamai? For instance, between placing the left hand in the middle or slightly to one's left, or having the kensen pointing to the opponent's left eye or to the center. I don't think it's one of those kind of advantages, disadvantages things. it's it's one of those things that I think is, as your kendo develops later on, and I think it's quite far later on, to be honest, like to the point where I'm not really sure if it's something I'm ready to mess around with yet. To be honest, but I certainly don't think it's something you should mess around with until sort of 5th dan or so. But I don't think it's a like an advantage or disadvantage thing. It's what works better for you, or feels more natural or effective for you once you get to that stage. But if you're like 3rd dan or something, 2nd dan or something like that, you're not there yet. You know, sorry. You know, you still should be sort of building the foundations, rather than messing around with kind of bending the rules, shall we say. And I just keep everything in the middle. So I know what you're talking about. Sometimes you do see these senseis that their kamai is slightly offset, or you know, instead of the shinai being in the middle, like the knuckle on the thumb is in the middle. So it creates what looks like a kind of open kamai, but it's not that the kamai is open. They're just using the shinai differently to control and interact with the center. It's not what I do. It's not how I particularly like to do it. It's not something I think I'm ready to mess around with, as I said. And I'm not sure it is something I see myself messing around with in the future, because it just feels more natural for me to go sort of straight on with it. But like I say, I don't think it's a kind of, you know, advantage, disadvantage thing. It's a personal thing. Next one. There's only a few questions today, so I won't be keeping you here too long, especially with this lower quality production. I'm only here for another couple of weeks, all right, and then I'll be back to normal. Hello, Andy. I have a few questions about kote maintenance. I've seen some people in Japan apply oil to the tenuchi leather every once in a while in order to make the leather softer after it gets very stiff. Apparently, it's supposed to make the tenuchi last longer. Is this something that you recommend? If so, what kind of oil is the best? Also, does this only work with real deer skin, or can it help with synthetic leather? Final question, what's the best way to patch a small hole on micro punch tenuchi? Thanks. Okay. So, yeah, you can apply leather to the tenuchi, but you'd only do it with real leather, with real deer skin. There's no point doing it on synthetic leather. It doesn't do anything at all. You can get like tenuchi leather, but it's quite hard to get your hands on outside of Japan. So if you're outside of Japan, you can use any sort of leather oil that's meant for leather, like neats for oil or something like that. The sort of thing that people would apply to saddles or to boots, you know. They're the sort of thing that you can use. You don't need to do it very often, like once a year or something like that, once every 6 months, depends on the climate you're in. Or if you wash them and then let them dry out, then it's worth, you know, giving a little bit of an oil. But yeah, it can make them last longer. Make sure they fully dry out though after you've you know, put the oil on them. Make sure they dry before you use them again. That could take a few days. But yeah, don't do it on synthetic leather. There's no point. And in terms of a micro punch tenuchi, you have to patch the small hole. So you'll find there's no kote on KendoStar that use micro punch tenuchi, and the reason for that, I don't think it's great in terms of durability. Frankly, you can try and patch it up, but at the end of the day, it's full of holes already. So. You know, you can try and patch it up as you would anything else, just try and stitch it over, but don't hold your breath on how long it's going to last, I'm afraid. And then, you know, when you get a chance, get them repalmed into something that's not got holes all over it. Would be my advice. Next one, let's see what we got here. Hi Andy, happy new year to you and yours. I've been asking this and have my own thoughts on it, but happy to hear your take, and hopefully many others who are not 100% sure like myself can also benefit. Cool. After the bow out, what's the expected conduct of the kohai without Bogu while the Bogu wearers pack theirs away? Should they sit and wait for the seniors to stand up, or can they get up and leave shortly after bowing out? The reasonable practical approach, is yes. They should be able to leave so we can get out of the hall promptly. I don't know about other clubs, but we're usually the last to leave the building. What's a traditional way when time constraints aren't pressing? Thanks, and all the very best to all Kendo in 2023. Well, that's a nice sentiment. Thank you. To be honest, I think once you finish doing the final bow, the people who are ready to leave can leave. I think that's where I sit on that. I don't think we need to sort of force them to sit around. Do you know what I mean? Sorry. I don't think we need to force them to sit around. And wait for everybody. Like you say, normally Kendo clubs are the last to leave. So it is, you might have time constraints. You might end up getting in trouble with the place you're hiring the hall from. Once the day is finished, I just let them go, to be honest. And that's pretty normal here in Japan too, from what I've seen. It's mainly in kids clubs where you have people that aren't wearing a Bogu yet, but once the ray's finished, they just get up and sort of totter off to the parents and sort of disappear, so. I hope you can hear me okay. I really do. I don't have any decent microphone set up. I'm not able to speak particularly loud either because of the time difference and the time I'm trying to get this video done and sent up. It's actually quite late at night here as well, so I can't really sort of do the whole bellowing and jumping around like I normally do. Like a bit of an idiot. Anyway, right. It's cold's not helping either. I feel like Kermit the Frog. Happy New Year, Sensei. Thank you. Happy New Year to you. May 2023 be a great year for you and the Kendo Show. Thank you very much. That's very nice of you. What's the difference between a small men strike and a sashi men? I understand many high-grade senseis look down upon sashi men, commenting that it's merely a tap rather than a proper strike. What's the crucial difference between a valid small men and a sashi men? Asking for a friend who's getting nervous as we have a few high-grade senseis visiting us this year. Okay. So, I've sometimes heard, mainly on the internet, and sort of outside of the sort of Japanese Kendo community, the term sashi men being used to describe the small men. But in Japan, the Japanese senseis I know and have used the word sashi men, I've used it in a separate context to the idea of just small men strike. So that's the way I think of it. I think of it as a separate thing. You have the correct men strike. You can either do the large swing or the small swing. And then sashi men is something different. And as I say, the senses I know usually describe it as in a negative way. So it's not good to do that. If they tell you you're doing the sashi men, it means you're doing it wrong. Now, sashi men, the word sashi men comes from the word sasu, which means to sort of stab or to poke. And that sort of describes a little bit of what it means. So instead of your small men might be a kind of men strike like this, sashi men is more like this sort of like a, almost like you're just poking at the men. Use this bottle of tea as this is the men, and this is the shinai. Yeah, instead of men this way. Now this is exaggerating. You don't want to pull the shinai back when you do a small men strike either, but it needs to be, but you know, men like this, right? Men like that, and not like this, like just sort of almost like it's just stabbing or sliding on the men. And I'd say that the crucial difference there is obviously the application of tenuchi, how you use your wrists for that snap, even with a small strike. Bam! Yeah, I can't get on the camera, it's too small. Small strike this way, or the Sashi men would just be like this kind of push, where it would, instead of this way, it just kind of go like this and sort of brush the men. And obviously, one of those meets the criteria of Yuko Datotsu, and the other one doesn't. Yeah, because the criteria of the Yuko Datotsu, the valid strike, is it has to have tsuyosa to sae. Okay, so tsuyosa to sae is the power, tsuyosa, strength, and sae is like the sharpness. And the sashi men doesn't have that. Yeah, it's just touching the men sort of thing. It might feel like it's fast, but it's just it's not even a tap almost, you know. Whereas the correct, valid small men still is strong enough to meet the criteria of Yuko Datotsu via the application of correct tenuchi. Okay, so that's the difference between the two. Okay. Next one. Okay, wow, we've got a long one here. Let's have a look. Okay, so Happy New Year, Fishy Sensei. Thank you very much. Happy New Year to you. I went through all of your Kendo RANT. Wow. As podcast during the Christmas period. Made my wife ask, who's the guy you're watching day in and day out? Honestly, all the questions I would ask you is being answered in there somewhere. Yeah, and through hours of video, I could feel you really passionate about Kendo, just like me. Good. Amazing. So no question this week, just one suggestion. Okay. In one of your rant, there was a mention of suggestion KendoStar selling Iaido, and you answered why you're not selling it. It made perfect sense. However, may I do another suggestion? As KendoStar builds such a good reputation in the Kendo field, I'm sure there are a large percentage of us also curious about Iaido, or should I say curious about katana. And if you're looking into Iaido, oh my god, there's so many of them, and they're so expensive. So my suggestion is use your personal network and talk to your friend who is expert in the field and figure out a quality but entry level of Iaido sword and put it on the KendoStar website. You don't have to largely expand your business model and taking the risk by selling the product to a new field. Instead, just sell one sword, maybe three in the future if it's a success. Entry, middle, and advanced. As my faith and many others of KS's honesty, I will blindly trust your judgment and buy from you. I know your heart is not in Iaido, but as a company, KendoStar earns such high level of trust from us. Trust is priceless, especially in this modern world. I think you should do more to help us. As Spider-Man once said, great power comes with great power comes great responsibility. Yeah. Okay. So to summarize, the suggestion is that I use the network I have of suppliers and knowledgeable people to ensure that to be able to provide Iaido to people who are mainly probably interested in Kendo more than EI, I guess, and therefore still provide you with a good quality Iaido product. Look, the thing is, I get what you're saying, right? I understand, and it's something I've looked into extensively. All right, I've looked into it extensively. I've got a couple of problems with it. All right, and I'm quite knowledgeable about Iaido swords, about the market for them. About how they, about them actually, and I do have a potential. I could get them if I wanted to. Let's put it that way. It's within my my network of suppliers to be able to source the Iaido swords from Japan. I don't want to do it though. All right, I don't really want to do it because first off, I'm not passionate about Iaido, all right? Because I don't practice it. I don't and I don't want to, you know, put products on KendoStar that I'm not super passionate about, and I don't believe, especially as we're talking about quite high-priced items. Yeah, we're not talking about cheap stuff. We're talking about quite high-priced items here. That, to be honest, you know, I'm quite knowledgeable in the products, because in previous jobs that I've worked in the Bogu industry, those of you that have followed me at the beginning of my career would know that I worked for companies that were also very big into Iaido and stuff like that. So I was very, very much involved in that. But I certainly wouldn't consider myself an expert, not in the way that I am an expert in Kendo equipment. All right. So I don't feel passionate or knowledgeable enough really to put products of that, you know, that are of that sort of price range out there under our brand. To be honest, is one reason. I think it would be. I feel like it'd be a bit of a cash grab. If that makes sense, and that's not what we're here for. There's enough of that goes on in this industry, without naming any names. But that's definitely one of the things that from the beginning I've been absolutely adamantly against in KendoStar, is just doing something for the sake of the money. So yeah, I don't see myself doing it for that reason. I'd rather you, if you want an Iaido, I'd rather you buy them from somewhere that is someone that is an expert. Now, I'm not going to tell you, you know, to go and buy from somewhere else, you know, but you know, if you're going to buy something that's expensive like a Kendo Bogu, I think you should buy from the most, you know, the most reputable and knowledgeable and professional website, KendoStar.com. But when it comes to something like an Iaido, that isn't something that I'm happy to say with that sort of level of confidence that I do have in KendoStar when I say it in KendoStar. So that's that for a start. And as you say, trust is the priceless entity that I think it's one of the key things that sets KendoStar apart from the other Kendo websites that are out there. You know, I know there's some popping up all over the left, right, and center as well. You know, but we're not. You know, I think our reputation stands for itself and sets us apart from everyone else in that regard. And I think adding something like Iaido on there, as I say, especially as some sort of cash grab, it feels like a bit of a cash grab, would be something that would put that trust in danger, and that's something I'm absolutely not prepared to do. And then finally, KendoStar's headquarters and our main shipping center at the moment is based in the UK. Now we're actually, one of the reasons I'm here in Japan is we're looking at expanding that to make things better globally for customers all over the world, so they can get orders even faster and even more efficiently. But that's probably quite a while down the line just yet. And for the time being, yeah, we're here. We're based mainly shipping out of the UK. The UK has got some very, very can I say? Well, they've got laws surrounding the ownership and the sale of Japanese swords, and it's kind of a quagmire I don't want to wade into, to put it lightly. Okay, so I hope that sort of answers that. Yeah, but I appreciate that you bring that up with me, and you'd like to buy something like that from KendoStar, but it is something that I've thought long and hard about, and it's just not something that, at least right now, I'm looking to get into. All right, hope it makes sense. Next one, greetings, Fisher Sensei. I'm going to be really pedantic here because this happens to me quite a lot. There's no C in Fisher. Okay. I know that was really, really picky. Happy New Year. Thank you very much. Happy New Year to you. I'm sorry if this has already been asked, but I noticed that the 8th Dan often use a term, I think it's Shinkiryoku actually, rather than Kentai. Can you explain the difference between them? Yeah, so essentially, I think this one is Shinkiryoku. It's not that one. This, I don't know how to use the Japanese on this laptop. So you've got Shinkiryoku no Ichi. I think that's how they write it. And you've got Kikentai. Of course. No Ichi. Okay. So these are the two things that you're asking about here. So obviously these parts are the same, as you can probably see. I'm not going to get into sort of doing a Japanese lesson. I'm not good enough at Japanese to do that. But this part just means together as one. Yeah, no Ichi. So Kentai no Ichi says Ki is the spirit, Ken is the sword, Tai is the body, no Ichi. Okay, we hear this a lot. This is a generic Kendo term, and it's about unifying the sword, body, and the spirit all as one into a perfect technique in order to achieve yuko datotsu. Okay, it doesn't mean to. It's often misunderstood, I think, as stamping with the fumikomi at the same time as you hit with the shinai and then shouting "man" or kote at the same time. It's not quite like that. I think that's too much of a superficial understanding of it, and in real terms, the right foot doesn't land together with the shinai anyway. But essentially, the strike, when you make the strike, the body, the shinai, and the spirit should all be unified into one. Now, this concept of Shinkiryoku no Ichi, I think that's how it is. Excuse me, like I said, I've got this cold going on. My throat's going now. Now I've been talking. It's obviously a little bit more of a sort of esoteric or a deeper concept. It's not a super common one. It's not one I've heard an awful lot, so I'm not going to pretend I can explain it in super detail either. But from what I understand, it's much more about the sort of spirit, and this is shin is like spirit, like kokoro is like the spirit, and then ki is also like spirit. So it's like kind of, but it's a little bit. It's got like a slightly different connotation. Shin is more like this like the spirit. Like you know, like your heart, not like your actual heart, but like, you know, the stuff that makes you sort of, I don't know, it's a little bit vague in it. But I guess it's like the sort of thing that makes you tick, you know. And then the key is, this key is in Chinese, I think, is what they call qi. So it's more like that sort of energy rather than the spirit. I mean, it is spirit, but, you know, so they're sort of similar things. And then this yoku is power. So I think where I'm at right now, and I'm not going to lie, I'm not super studied this, but I think this concept is more about how you sort of unify the energy and spirit in your together with your body. I think this power, this yoku, I think this means like physical movement, and this means like spiritual movement, maybe. I think so. I think it's more a sort of a deeper level of understanding than this sort of very practical kikentai no ichi. Kikentai no ichi is very observable. Hence, it's part of the yoku datotsu. Whereas I think this sort of shinki ryoku no ichi is much more sort of internal, sort of to the individual. I could very well be wrong. All right, so I'm not sure for definite, but I think it's an interesting question, and I don't think the concepts are miles apart. But I do think probably once you sort of get past the point of, you know, kikentai no ichi at the sort of basic level, there is probably an underlying, or the next sort of step from that is this sort of concept of shinki ryoku, which I think is super interesting. Actually, I do, and I'll think on it more now you brought it up. But yeah, not an amazing answer for you, I'm afraid, but that's what I've got. Okay, here we are at the last one. Right. Okay, we've got another Japanese one. Okay, let's have a look. At the risk of being pedantic, is there a difference between Karageko and Karageko? Some folks are thinking that one is more crazy non-stop action while the other might be more deliberate, but I'm almost wondering if the adults are more deliberate simply because they're not teenagers. So I guess the subtext of what I'm asking is, how can and should Karageko change for different age groups and experience levels, if any? Okay. You also posted a video, which I haven't included here because I didn't want to just sort of put it in without, you know, anything. But I think the video, the title of the video that you posted was something like what was it, like Chudan sensei ni kakaru keiko or something like that, and it was written this. So both of these say Karageko. All right, they're just different kanji. From a linguistic point of view, I'm not an expert in Japanese language. I'm pretty sure they're just variants on the same kanji. For the most part, you always see it written this way, though I have seen it written like this before, and I think it's mainly because this kanji probably is a little bit more interesting. So sometimes some people like to use that one, but 9 times out of 10, it's written this way. Now, excuse me, I don't think there's a difference between the two. I think they're both referring to the same thing. Now, there's 2 things we're going to pick up on here. First is, I think where the confusion might have come is a little bit from that that video that you posted, which I think it said Hachidan sensei ni kakaru I think it was something like that. Right, I think I'm going off memory here, and this is not Karageko. This doesn't say Karageko. It says Karageko. This one thing is different. Now it's the same word. It's a different form of it. But when it says something sensei ni kakaru, it means you're being kakarite to their motodachi. It doesn't mean you're doing kakarigeko. It's different. Some senseis call that kakari no keiko instead of, you know, kakarigeko. So it's a slightly different. It sounds similar, but it's actually, it's not slightly different. It's very different thing, in that you are. It's jigeko, but it's not. It's hikitate geiko or shido geiko. From your point of view, it's shido geiko. From their point of view, it's hikitate geiko. But you are doing the kakarite, you are doing the kakaru to their motodachi. And that's why it's Hachidan Sensei ni kakaru keiko. And that's why when you click on that video, it's two people doing what we would normally describe as jigeko, because one of them is a sensei and the other is the person who is doing the kakarite to their motodachi in the jigeko. Okay. It's not Karageko. That's not a video of Karageko. It's somebody doing the Hachidan Sensei ni Karageko. Okay, so that's the first thing I'd say on that. All right. Now, in terms of your next aspect, the next aspect of your question is, so I don't think that this one and this one are a different meaning of the same. They're the same thing. Okay, they're both kakarigeko, and kakarigeko is the attacking practice. You attack all out towards the motodachi without fear of whether your strikes will be successful or returned with the wajiwaza, or blocked or defended, or that sort of thing. Of course, young people are able to do that more dynamically than older people. I think there is a point at which, when like high school kids in Japan, their karageko is almost like it's not an aerobic exercise, but it's a very physical keiko pattern, right, where they just attack like crazy, like I say, with no regard whatsoever, almost for whether they're moving correctly, they're doing correct form or anything like that, but they're absolutely sort of killing themselves, making these attacks over and over and over. And that's obviously not sustainable as you get older. I think if you watch higher level kenshi, like competitive police, stuff like that, especially ones that are not like super young, the ones that are sort of in the sort of early 30s, I'd say, their karageko looks a little bit more precise, but it's still very, very intense. I wouldn't say I think there's a temptation for us to not pretend, but to use age and experience as an excuse to not push ourselves as hard as we probably should in Karageko, and say, we should be doing more deliberate, more correct strikes and stuff like that, which you should be doing as you gain more experience. Yes, you should be trying to make strikes that are still, the successful ones should still meet the criteria for yoku datotsu, but it's not necessarily the top priority still, is it? Still, the idea is the attacking spirit is the point. It's not the same as uchikomi geiko. Uchikomi geiko would be more where, the motodachi is going to receive the strikes for you, and that's a real opportunity to practice continuous strikes, whilst retaining correct form and properly fulfilling the criteria you call datotsu, whereas the karageko is more where you are really trying to polish that attacking spirit. It's real hard, horrible stuff. Good for you though. Okay, I think that's I think that's the sort of answer to that. Yeah. Excuse me. I hope that makes sense. So there we are. That's the end of it. I hope you could hear me today. I hope the sound isn't too bad. I know the video is kind of blurry. I hope I answered the questions. Thank you for joining me. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and shop at KendoStar. And I'll definitely do my best to have another episode for you next week. Thanks for joining me. See you next time. Bye-bye.